So this plan is very accurately being prepared because China is the economic center and Russia is the military center, and both need to be neutralized for the multipolar world to fail. The West knows that very precisely. The West cannot prevent the de-dollarization from happening, but it can neutralize China militarily. In the same way, it cannot win a war with Russia, but it can make Russia busy with proxy conflicts and neutralize China militarily. And this is the challenge now for both sides, and this is the situation we are expecting for the future.
Welcome to another RTD interview. Today, I'm excited to have first-time guest, Mr. Lucas Larraz, on the channel. And so Lucas is a Brazilian journalist and a researcher at the Center of Geostrategic Studies. He's a frequent contributor on InfoBricks, which is a leading news source on the Russian development news, and is also a commentator on the Sputnik Radio. Today, he joins us to share his thoughts on the recent BRICS activities, geopolitical news, as well as economics. And so, Lucas, welcome to RTD Interviews.
Thanks, Mike, for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. As you said, I'm a journalist and geopolitical analyst. I work in Russian media and also in Brazilian and other countries' media outlets. And my focus is on geopolitics, but also on issues concerning geopolitics and, of course, de-dollarization and some topics in this regard are very important to understand geopolitics. So it's my pleasure to be here contributing with you.
Well, thank you. As I mentioned, definitely looking forward to connecting. And so came across your Twitter account, and I noticed that because I check in with infobricks.org, which is what I consider a leading news source on geopolitics as well as developments within the BRICS ecosystem. And so the fact you're Brazilian, I know you offer a unique perspective that our audience could definitely use. So that's why I love to connect with you and get a different take from outside the Western mainstream media, just because I don't really trust under the sources here. So it's always good to get a different viewpoint. So I want to just jump right in. So for those who may not know you, give us a little bit of a background. How did you get into covering a lot of these topics that you cover?
Yes, my working academic journey was always related to international topics, since I was a researcher in international law in my law degree, and I started to research law, but so I understood that geopolitics was my real capacity, because law is not the right means to understand global scenario. We don't live in a rules-based world order, as the West says. And so I started to engage in geopolitics and real politics, international relations, and I started to write my analysis I think 4 years ago, and I started to publish my articles on Chinese media, CGTN, Chinese Global Television, and so I started working also for Russian media, and that's why I still working with these topics, and my aim is precisely to show a new approach from the South, from the global South, from Brazil, and also from the perspective of our aligned countries, of our BRICS nations and global South nations. And so I always try to present our perspective to Western, U.S., European citizens, because I think you there are having more isolated from the alternative media than us. So it's my pleasure to be contributing in this regard.
Yes, I thank you for sharing that. And so I guess so the channel is called Rethinking a Dollar. And so I was almost 9 years ago, having traveled a little bit and then lived in Argentina, Chile, and countries surrounding you. And I began questioning the supremacy as well as the longevity of the current Federal Reserve note structured system through the SWIFT and things like that. So I began questioning it a long time ago, knowing that at some point there will be some issues that the world will be facing. And so here we are now. And over the last, several months now, the de-dollarization term has become mainstream to where even some Western media is now talking about de-dollarization. And so from your perspective, you have the Brazilian real, and I know from a currency standpoint, it's not probably the strongest. And so the dollar is still prevalent and useful to you guys. But share with us, I guess, what is some of the things that's egging on the de-dollarization process? And for those who may not be familiar with that, what is the de-dollarization process to you?
Okay. If you analyze it in isolation, de-dollarization is just a monetary economic phenomenon and does not have any profound implications for the global structure of power. But I always make relations between these economic situations with geopolitics. So in my perspective, in my opinion, de-dollarization is the economic monetary nuance regarding the current global transition towards multipolarity. We can't see this as simply as a new economic wave, but as something related to a new geopolitical structure. Because if we consider when de-dollarization started, we go back some years, because, for example, France and China are negotiating without dollars since many years ago. And so this is not so relevant in isolation. But concerning geopolitics and relation to these two topics, we have something very important, because now de-dollarization means the economic, monetary phase of multipolarity. It's not by chance that since the start of Russia's special operation Ukraine, the de-dollarization grew a lot. Russia started to use the sanctions as an excuse to advance its de-dollarization plans. Russia started its gas for ruble project, and in the same way, China advanced a lot in its de-dollarization plans and started to negotiate with many countries using the yuan. So now de-dollarization means another thing. It means the economic aspects of the new geopolitical order. And that's why we need to pay attention both on economic transition and on geopolitical transition. If analyzed separately, they are meaningless, but when analyzed in the same context, they reveal how the world is changing.
Interesting. The world is changing. And so you hinted at the Russian-Ukraine situation that capped off last year, escalating geopolitical tensions. And here we are today where the West, given the fact the U.S. being the head honcho because of our reserve currency status, has always been the tyrannical, governing authority of the world due to the reserve status, as well as our military presence all around the world. And so not only is Russia one of our so-called, enemies, if we want to use that word, but then also now it looks like China is being put in that same light, to where they're trying to use a Taiwan situation as a possible reason that they might escalate some type of conflict with China. And so is this a part of a strategic plan, or is this a part of a much greater plan in reference to the world wanting to move away from the dollar, in your opinion?
So, in my opinion, both economic and military aspects needed to be due to together by both sides of the world conflict. Now, on one side, we have the West trying to preserve its global hegemony, but for that to happen, it needs to win a war against Russia and another against China. But a war against Russia is impossible to win because of Russia's arsenal regarding nuclear weapons. And so the West is trying to do this war through proxy conflicts, not only Ukraine. Ukraine is the main conflict, but we are expecting that new flanks will arise, soon, mainly in Transnistria or Kosovo or Artsakh or other regions in Eurasia. So the West is waging war with Russia through proxy conflicts. While with China, there are many predictions about what will happen. I tend to believe that the West thinks about China as an easier target. It's obviously very strong in military capacity, but not so strong as Russia. So the West hopes to defeat China on the battlefield, and we will use the Taiwan excuse for that. There are many factors to be considered here because obviously in such a scenario the most obviously thing is that Russia would help China in some way, either through direct involvement or not, but would help. And so this is why the US is hurried to engage in many conflicts, proxy conflicts against Russia, to make Russia busy and distract Russia and prevent it from helping China in a possible conflict in the future. That's my perspective. And when we come back to the economic factor, we consider when we come back to the economic factor, considering these situations, we have a great challenge for both sides, because now China is the main economic center of this new multipolar world that is arising, while Russia is accelerating this process of multipolarization through military. China is doing the same process through the economic development, and the West needs to neutralize both threats if it plans to preserve its hegemony. As I said, militarily, Russia is impossible to win, while China is not. But if China is defeated militarily without in a conflict without Russian help, in the long term, Russia will not be able to recover its capacity and its geopolitical ambitions, because it will not have China's economic help anymore. So this plan is very accurately being prepared, because China is the economic center and Russia is the military center, and both need to be neutralized for the multipolar world to fail. The West knows that very precisely. The West cannot prevent the de-dollarization from happening, but it can neutralize China militarily. In the same way, it cannot win a war with Russia, but it can make Russia busy with proxy conflicts and neutralize China militarily. And this is the challenge now for both sides, and this is the situation we are expecting for the future. In my opinion, Taiwan is really the next target of US, not only US, NATO's aggression, and that's my perspective.
Interesting. Now, I'm curious to get your thoughts, because my next question was going to be, which one of the countries are leading the way in this whole de-dollarization process? And you kind of hinted at China being the head of the economic side, where Russia's more the military side. So, where does India, South Africa, and Brazil, how do they fit into this union of BRICS? And then you got the BRICS Plus, where you got now 20 or so countries looking to join this union. And so what exactly is happening within this union? Why is everyone looking to run into that new formation of a union?
It's a very interesting topic, because BRICS, in my opinion, is the summit of the empires of a new multipolar world. When we talk about Brazil, we are not talking only about Brazilian states, but an entire South American, Latin American sphere of influence. When we talk about Russia, we talk about Eurasian sphere of influence. When we talk about China, we talk about Chinese sphere of influence in its continental zone. So these are superpowers that can influence satellite states and be real empires in a new world order. And that's why some countries with similar potential are looking for the BRICS as an opportunity. In South America, the most powerful country, except Brazil, is Argentina, at least in potential, because now Argentina is very weakened economically, but it's a very likely to be recover in the future. So Argentina is looking for the BRICS. In the same way,
I'm
Iran.
sorry to cut you off, Luke. You say Argentina as other regional powerhouse type country in South America. You said Argentina.
America. Yes, Argentina.
Okay.
That's,
Okay. Sorry,
another
Go ahead.
possibility. No, yes, it's another possibility of regional power. In the same way, Saudi Arabia and Iran in the Middle Eastern region. So these are countries with capacity to influence its neighboring states and being empires in a new geopolitical order. So these are the countries which are looking for BRICS membership. They saw what BRICS means now. BRICS joins together Russia and China, which are the two centers of this geopolitical transition, and these countries see this as an opportunity for them to elevate, to increase their geopolitical insertion, their geopolitical presence. This is why many countries are trying to join the BRICS, in my opinion. But the BRICS, before becoming a BRICS Plus, needed to consolidate the BRICS itself. The BRICS themselves were saying, because these are different countries with different interests. And these different interests are causing some problems in some situations. Now we have China and Russia very close, working together in many directions, in many issues, cooperation economically, militarily, and in many factors. But on the other side, we have in India and Brazil very ambiguous in their geopolitical positions. India has historical many problems with China, and these problems, despite lessened, are not fully ended, because they still exist, and India has some issues regarding its relations with China. In the same way, Brazil is now very committed with the so-called Western rules-based world order. Brazil, for example, openly criticized Russia's decision to launch a military operation in Ukraine, as well as voted against Russia in the UN resolutions. It was the only BRICS country to do so. Despite being neutral, it's neutral, but at the same way favoring the Western narrative. So it's very dangerous for the stability of BRICS relations. I think that Brazil and India are the countries that makes the BRICS now very unstable. And these problems need to be ended as soon as possible in order for the BRICS becoming the BRICS Plus. Regarding South Africa, we have a more stable situation, because there are no problems between South Africa and any of the BRICS country, and this is a more stable partner of Russia and China. But regarding Brazil, we have problems with Russia's decision to launch its operation, and regarding India, they have problems with China's development. And so, in my opinion, this is the main problem for the advancement of BRICS, and consequently for the advancement of all BRICS projects, such as the common currency.
Interesting. Now, I'm curious to get your thoughts on, I guess, this upcoming summit in August. And I guess, as I always say, the world is watching as the anticipation of some type of announcement of an alternative currency payment system or things like that. And so, well before then, we know about currency swaps, bilateral trade agreements, and things like that we've witnessed develop over the last several years. And so, based upon what you know, what you think, what exactly will there be something introduced to the world that will probably make the monetary system a more even and more balanced playing field for these countries in reference to international trade and reserve allocation and things of that nature, or what?
Yes. The next summit will be very decisive because the other BRICS countries will have to make the projects advance. We had so many promises until now. We had promises to create a common currency. We had promises to create new projects of development and so on. But now things need to advance, and the summit is the opportunity for that. We had recently the meeting of the ministers of foreign relations of the BRICS countries in South Africa, and we had no relevant announcement, relevant statement about any great change expected for the summit. But things need to happen, need to advance. I don't expect that there will be any so relevant change regarding the common currency in this August summit, because this is a slow process. It does not occur so rapidly. But at least regarding some things, for example, on what which results the currency will be based, if it on oil, on agricultural resources, on something. This needs to be decided. But I also not so. I'm also not so optimistic regarding the possibilities of the countries ending all their issues. For example, Brazil and Russia are very unstable, as I said before, and what I expect what will be the future of this bloc if its main partners, some of its main partners, as Brazil, South America, and Russia, are not stable on the relations, and the same way with China and India. So, in my opinion, this new summit tends to be more bureaucratic, and I don't expect it to so many changes for now. But in some way, things will have to accelerate to consolidate the projects. And another topic that is too much relevant and needs to be commented on is the possibility of elevating the BRICS the BRICS number of members for the BRICS Plus to start. For now, Iran and Argentina are the countries that, in my opinion, are more likely to join the alliance. And after then, I think that Algeria and maybe Saudi Arabia are highly likely to join in the future. So, regarding these issues, the summit will have to be more decisive regarding at least the new members, the new likely members. But regarding our internal projects, I don't expect so many changes for now.
Now, I'm curious to get your thoughts on the use of the renminbi, the Chinese yuan. And so there's been a lot of trade deals done between Brazil and China, as well as Russia. China have a pretty hefty, intermediary type of currency swap agreement going on there. And so the Chinese yuan it appears to be being positioned as something that is an alternative for countries to not necessarily worry about having to, I guess, have dollars in reserve, because there's clearly some dollar issues right now. And so the yuan is coming in as a backstop or something of that magnitude. So if there's no BRICS currency outright, will more of those countries continue to push and encourage just utilizing the yuan until they're able to come out with a common structure for that currency that they might want to roll out, or what? What are you thinking?
Yes, more important than more important than creation of common currency between the BRICS, between the other blocs such as Mercosur, Latin American. So more important than creation currencies, we need to de-dollarize in some way. And Russia is doing so. Russia and China are doing so, and Chinese currency is the most advanced currency in this regard. For example, in Latin America, not only in Brazil, but also on the other countries of our continent, we had a great pressure to de-dollarize, not because of any geopolitical issues, but because of the economic elites in our countries, which are very dependent on China. And they realized that China is de-dollarizing, right? China wants to increase the negotiations in its own currency, and so they pressured the governments to de-dollarize. It happened in Brazil mainly because of our agribusiness sector, which is very dependent on China, and it is happening in all the countries. Despite I don't have exact precise data now, but it's really happening. So de-dollarizing is the priority for all the global South, for the BRICS and the BRICS candidates and our allied countries. And if the Chinese currency is the most appropriate to be used for now, the Chinese is for countries to start an increase in the use of the yuan, and if necessary, postponing the possibility of creating regional currencies or BRICS currency. But the main focus will is now and will be in the future to finish this de-dollarization project and consolidate the world as a possibility of using different currencies. If China is China is the greatest rising superpower, and consequently the priority for economic elites in all the countries and for the global South mainly. So Chinese currency is the highly preferred, most appropriate for the current moment.
Interesting. So I'm curious, as we draw down towards the end, give me your short-term, mid-range, and long-term viewpoint on the de-dollarization process and some alternative other than the yuan being rolled out that will be where will the dollar be, in your opinion, in 5 to 10 years, given all the events that you're witnessing now, is the question.
Yes, the dollar will be very important currency, a very strong currency, but restricted to Western zone of influence. Countries will negotiate in dollar and use dollar if they want to do so, and not it will not be imposed on them through coercion and through military hegemony by the U.S. I say this, of course, considering that the multipolarization process will be finished and consolidated, and ignoring the possibility of escalation, nuclear war, and so on. So if things go well, this is the future of the dollar, as well as the European currencies, and as well as all the relevant countries of regions blocks currencies. We will have multipolar monetary system, multipolar economic system. As I said, de-dollarization is the economic monetary nuance of the geopolitical transition. It's the face, it's the economic face of a geopolitical movement. So I don't believe in another hegemonic currency. I believe that China will be very strong because it's the most important rising country now, and as I said, countries prioritize China when they choose which currency to use. But I don't believe in a hegemon of the Chinese currencies, and I don't believe in the hegemony of any countries, neither in military or economic or cultural issues. I believe in multipolarity in its pure sense, with countries being able to decide which country to use, and countries being able to negotiate with which country they want to negotiate, because there will be no hegemony.
So, Lucas, thank you for joining us on RTD Interviews. It was great to get your assessment on where things are currently and where they're heading. Thank you for joining us, and definitely look forward to staying in touch with you, having you back on and get more updates as time moves forward. So, thanks for joining us on RTD Interviews.
Thanks for having me.